Should I go ahead and share the screen so that we have the... We'll get started in a couple of... Oh, whoa, here they really come. Okay, wow, okay. You seeing that?
Looks good. All right, we'll go ahead and introduce. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Digital Days for Admitted Students event. My name is Megan Madler. I'm one of the assistant deans here, and I am excited to have our professor of sociology, Thomas Linneman, join us today to talk a little bit about academic advising. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Admitted Students Day Zoom version. As Megan said, my name is Tom Linneman. I am a professor in the sociology department, where I teach courses in statistics, social change, sexualities, and for the first time ever, a course called Pandemic Sociology, which has proved to be very interesting. In addition to that, I have sort of a part-time administrative role, and that is as the faculty director of the Office of Academic Advising. Now, we have an associate, a wonderful associate director, Shelley Lorenzo, and several professional advisors, and I'll talk about those in a little while. So just to give you an overview of what this session is going to cover, I'm going to talk for a little while about the college curriculum. Then I'll talk about something we have to get students ready over the summer before they arrive, called college studies. Then I'll talk about the kind of an academic advising model that we have at William & Mary. As you've been, looking around at colleges, I'm sure you've realized that every college is a little bit different in this regards. And so I'll talk about how we set up advising and how we think about it. Then I'll kind of lay out what the advising is going to look like in your first year at the college. So I'll just kind of guide you through what that first year will be. And then I'll talk about the wide variety of resources, beyond our Office of Academic Advising. I want to talk about some other resources that are available to students. And finally, we'll have plenty of time for questions. Now, with regard to questions, if you do have questions, we ask that you type them into the chat. You should see a chat button at the bottom. Oh, Megan, did you start the recording?
Yes, we're good.
Thank you. Okay, just forgot to mention that. Okay, so yes, you should see a chat button at the bottom in case you're not wise in the ways of Zoom. And you can put your questions in there. Megan's going to be monitoring the chat closely, and then she will kind of oversee our question and answer period at the end. Okay. I also want to intersperse some of my favorite pictures of the college. Because let's admit it, this is a weird way to do this. Megan and I were talking about how I much prefer when we have the official day for admitted students on that Saturday, where everyone can come to campus. Usually the campus looks really, really good for that. There was one year it was raining though. Sometimes gets in the way of the Monument 10K in Richmond, which I sometimes do, but I much prefer the day for admitted students to be on a Saturday. But here we are, and we'll make the best of it, and hopefully you'll at least get a feel for how pretty the campus is right about now, because it really is. So the first thing I want to talk about is the college curriculum, or in shorthand, we call it the call curriculum. It's the equivalent, it's our version of what you might hear called a general education curriculum. But we revised our system about, I think, like our fifth or sixth year into this call curriculum, and it's fairly unique in what it and how it's set up. So I just want to briefly walk you through kind of what the college curriculum looks like. So this graphic kind of captures it. The green, everything you see in green is part of the college curriculum. And those are courses that you do need to take at the college. Now, the other two areas, so for example, the major, depending on the major, there are certain courses that you might be able to satisfy through, AP, IB, perhaps community college courses. Same for some electives. There's still plenty of room in our curriculum for electives, and you may be able to transfer those credits in as well. But the college curriculum is designed that the courses are unique enough that they are designed to be taken at the college. In the first year, you will take what's called a Call 100 and a Call 150. Now, we want you to take one of these each semester. It completely does not matter which one you take first. It's not numerically set up in that way. So about half the students take the Call 100 in the fall, and then the Call 150 in the spring. And then we have students taking the Call 150 in the fall and the Call 100 in the spring. These are designed as first-year seminars to help acclimate students to the college. The Call 150, we've had these for a really long time. They were formerly known as freshman seminars, but now we call them the Call 150. These are very small courses, typically capped at right around 15, where students are working very closely with a professor on a very specific topic. In terms of skills, what we're really emphasizing in this, in the Call 150 is the writing and revision skills. The Call 100 are a tad larger, more like 25 students. And these cover kind of broader ideas. And in terms of skills, the skills we emphasize in these are more the presentation, multimedia kind of skills, which are so important in the real world today. Then we have the Call 200s. And you see right below that, you'll see three sets of letters: NQR, ALV, and CSI. We have set up three areas. NQR is natural, world, and quantitative reasoning. ALV is arts, letters, and values. And CSI is society and the individual. I always forget what that C stands for. I think it's community. Sorry. And that's my own. I really like the fact that my discipline is located in CSI. Megan, do you know that one off the top of your head? CSI. She's gonna look it up.
I am gonna look.
Is it community?
I
think it is. Anyway, Megan's gonna find that. And sorry to put you on the spot there, Megan. Why do I always forget that one?
Culture, societies.
Culture. Oh, how can you forget culture? Culture, society, and the individual. There we go. So we have these three areas, and what the Call 200s do, I think, is really neat. Each Call 200 is anchored in one of these, but then reaches out to one or both of the other domains. And I love these courses because they really get at the interdisciplinary nature of knowledge creation. So just to give you an example, and not to toot my own horn, but I teach a Call 200 course called social movements and social change. And it's anchored in culture, society, and the individual. We cover kind of how social change happens, how social movements work. However, we also have segments of the class where we're reaching out to both of the other domains. So we reach out to ALV, arts, letters, and values, by looking at the artistic nature of a lot of social movement tactics and how they use those tactics. We also reach out, and we're about to start this component in my class. I'm teaching it right now. We'll start this component next week, where we reach out to the NQR domain, looking at a variety of social movements that have to interact with the natural sciences and how activists interact with scientists. Activists, of course, can be scientists themselves when we talk about that. But we look at such movements as the peace movement, the environmental movement, animal rights movement, the transgender movement, the AIDS movement. All movements that in some way or another interact with scientists. And we talk a lot about how expertise is created both by scientists and by the activists themselves. So yeah, the Call 200, I have to admit, I do have a favorite of the Call curriculum, and it is the Call 200. The Call 300 is called In the World, and it's only one course. The Call 200, you have to take several courses, and that's all laid out in the details. So I don't want to get too much into the details now. Call 300 is one course, and it is typically met for a lot of students by an abroad experience. Not lately, of course, but we're hoping to get back to that soon. We realize, though, that even outside of COVID, there are some students who don't have the opportunity to do an abroad experience. So we bring the world to campus. And so we have what are called on-campus Call 300s that students can take, that are courses that have a very global flavor to them. Also at the 300 level, we have the Call 350, which is, so if the Call 300 is kind of globally looking at things globally, the Call 350 is looking at diversity issues as it relates to issues within the United States, looking at justice issues, issues with regard to race, and with regard to other forms of diversity. Then at the 400 level, there is your capstone course. Typically, your capstone course is going to be located within your major. And it's called a capstone because it's kind of designed to bring everything together, like all the writing and presentation skills you learned early on, all the interdisciplinary skills you learn in your Call 200. How do you present to a diverse audience, for example? That's something that the Call 400 covers. And those are kind of to cap off your college experience. So I'll be happy to take further questions on the Call curriculum later on if you're putting them in the chat now. There we go. There's another lovely day at William & Mary. It's one of my favorite spots on campus. Next thing I want to talk just briefly about is college studies. So should you choose to attend William & Mary, one thing you'll be doing over the summer, this coming summer, is participating in what we call college studies. And this is a program that runs out of my Office of Academic Advising and the Writing Center. It is overseen by a wonderful group of peer advisors. So every student is matched up with a peer advisor. And if they have questions on the college studies course, which is all done online, it's not an in-person experience, it's all done online, they can reach out to their peer advisor and they'll be glad to help. Typically this happens in July, and it is required of new students. And what we're trying to do in this college studies course is we're trying to really set students up for success in their first year. So there's part one, which is kind of the nuts and bolts of, how do you plan your academic path? How do you register? We put students through practice registration sessions, so they get used to the college's systems and how to get around in all the college's systems. It also talks about kind of what the advising experience is going to look like, although I'm going to talk about that briefly soon. Part two of college studies is called The World of Information. And this deals with, kind of brings in the whole writing side, the whole, how to use the library system effectively side. We talk about things like how to avoid plagiarism. What does plagiarism mean? How do you find good sources and those kinds of things. So this is a really good course. We ask students about their experience with it when we survey them after their first year, and a lot of students really do get a lot out of it. So that is something you will be doing over the summer. And it's not really extensive. I want to say I think it can be done in don't quote me on this. I want to say like 5 to 8 hours total. So that is college studies. The famous Grindell Bridge, looking good. Next, I want to talk about what academic advising looks like at William & Mary, because as I said, every college is a little bit different. Some colleges have very kind of staff-driven professionals. So there's a set of staff advisors that oversee advising for the whole college. At William & Mary, we very consciously have set up a faculty advisor model. So every new student will be assigned over the summer, kind of late in the summer, a pre-major advisor. And you're probably wondering, how do we make those matches? We use a variety of characteristics. We use students' academic interests. We use, students who are veterans want to be set up with a faculty advisor who's also a veteran. We can do that. If you're a neurodiverse student who wants to be set up with a faculty advisor who is interested in working with neurodiverse students, or if you're a first generation student, we can set you up based on those characteristics. But primarily what we're trying to match on here is academic interests. So over the summer, you'll be asked to fill out a survey called the New Student Inventory. And it's very important that you fill that out. That is where you can express interests that will be used to do the matching process. Our matching process, I think, is really good. A couple of years ago, we had a math professor and 2 undergraduate math students who worked with our office and developed a new matching algorithm that's working really well. The matches are generally quite good. So you work with your pre-major advisor for your freshman and sophomore year. Once you declare your major, then you get a major advisor. Now you may be asking, given that you can double major at William & Mary, just sidebar here, here are the 3 options. You can have 1 major, you can have a major and a minor, or you can have 2 majors. Those are your only 3 options at William & Mary. And again, that's something that varies widely across the country. You hear some students have, I have 3 majors and 2 minors. And no, we don't do that. We don't do that at William & Mary. Anyway, if you do double major, you will have a major advisor within each major, and that's the advisor you'll work with for your junior and senior year. In addition to your faculty advisors, there are wonderful other sources of advice. So as I mentioned earlier, my Office of Academic Advising, we have several wonderful staff advisors who are great to offer a second opinion. So for example, earlier this week, I had one of my faculty advisors email me about one of her advisees. And so we actually got on the phone and talked. And we realized that, it'd be a really good moment because of the student's specific needs. She had lots of questions that, the faculty advisor was trying to address. But I said, well, why don't we have the student have a meeting with one of the staff advisors as well. And so I reached out to the student, and the student has set up that. I think she said she was going to set up that meeting. I hope she did. Next, we have pre-professional advisors. So we have, you can't, at William & Mary, you cannot major in pre-med. You can't major in pre-law. But we do have advisors for all those. We have a very strong, even though you can't major in pre-med, you can, there's definitely a very, very strong pre-med program that is overseen by one of my favorite people on campus, Beverly Sher, Sher, in case you're taking notes. And so if you search for her pre-med website, just type in pre-med into the William & Mary search, she is so wonderfully organized. Basically, if you're a pre-med, you just want to do whatever Professor Scher says. She is very good at keeping such students on track. But we also have pre-law, pre-health, pre-engineering, pre-education, and we have advisors in all of those areas who are willing to work with students who are preparing for those kinds of futures. In addition, we have peer advisors. So, as I mentioned, peer advisors oversee help oversee the college studies summer course. And then throughout the year, they're also available to help students and offer yet another source of advice. So more advice than you could ever imagine is available at William & Mary. And so what I really recommend to the students when I speak to them during orientation is take advantage of all the wonderful forms of advice that you have available to you. Yes, you have your pre-major advisor and you'll work closely with them. But you have all these other potential sources of advice as well. The Christopher Wren building, looking good. Okay, now I want to talk about what the advising process looks like in the first year. And this will give you a pretty good feel, should you choose to attend, kind of what that's going to look like. So when you arrive in August, as part of your orientation, you will know by then who your pre-major advisor, your faculty pre-major advisor is, and you will have your first required advising meeting, where you talk about, it's just, besides just a kind of a get to know you kind of meeting, you will talk about what you have already registered for, because you do some of your registration over the summer. You'll talk about what you want to finish registering, what additional classes you would like to sign up for. And kind of what your goals are for the first year, kind of what the long-term goals are, that we're not going to pressure you right away. So I might ask my advisees, I always have some advisees of my own. I might ask them, no pressure, but kind of if we're thinking about majors, which we want to think about throughout the first year, kind of what areas are we thinking about? Then in October, we have what's called the midterm grading period. And I'll come back to this slide in a moment, but I'm going to switch over to another slide to talk about what midterm grades are. They're not official grades that go into a transcript by any means. They are basically signals about how you're doing. So all of our faculty are asked, and we have very, very high response rates with this. Most of the faculty do this. For every student in each one of their classes, put in one of the following midterm grades for each student. Are they doing acceptable work? Now, acceptable can be anything from A-level work all the way down to like C- work. So, AC does not mean A by any means. It means acceptable. MR is kind of, students in the D range, definitely, doing marginal work. May not be failing, but, they're on the outskirts of that. And finally, if a student is on the trajectory to attain an F, the professor will put in unsatisfactory. And again, these are signals. These don't go into the transcript, but this gives us the opportunity to for the advisor to step in. All advisors are made known of these midterm grades and check them carefully. And they could bring them up during the second required advising meeting. I will reach out to my students if they have marginal or unsatisfactory midterm grades and provide advice, especially if they're considering withdrawing from the course. I want them to know what all their options are. They have to, have they have to keep a minimum full load is 12 credit hours. So if you're signed up for 14 hours and you want to drop a 3 credit class, that's going to involve petitioning to a college committee. So kind of laying out all the students' options. And also in the October advising meeting, we talk about what the student wants to register for the spring. I noticed that I saw a hand raise. Please, we're putting all questions in the chat. So, and I will be happy to answer those in just a little while. So that gets us to January. January, fall final grades are posted. Advisors check those grades, check in with students. And students can, sometimes make adjustments to their course schedule after they, have their final grades and, may want to make some changes there. Then the final required advising meeting happens in March. It looks very, very similar to the second one where we're talking about the midterm grades. We're talking about the withdrawal deadline. We're talking about what you want to register for your fall, so for your third semester at the college. And then final grades are posted sometime in May. So that kind of gives you a feel for the full year and the role that advising plays. Now, all 3 of these meetings are required. After this third meeting, I always tell my own advisees, look, this is our last required meeting. We do not have to meet again. However, if you want to meet, I am more than willing to do so. Whether that be, just exchanging emails about, oh, I got a quick question, just going to check in on emails, or you can drop into my office hours, or we can set up our own special meeting. That's totally fine. Because I remain those students' advisees until they declare their major. Typically, students will declare their major in the fall of their sophomore year or the spring of their sophomore year. Now, there are, of course, as you might imagine, there are specific sets of rules with regard to when you can declare and when you must declare. There are different configurations of credits for that. And if you're really interested in those fascinating details, you can just, in the William & Mary search, you can type in declaration of major form, and that'll bring up the file, and right at the top there, it lays out in very clear, I think they use both bold and italics, kind of, okay, here's when you can declare, and here's when you must declare. One common misconception that students have is, the student comes in with, some students come in with a lot of AP IB credit, and say they come in with, I don't know, like 30 AP IB. Some students think that, oh my gosh, I have a lot of credits already, so I need to declare right away. And that is not true, simply not true. We allow students to be on campus for quite a while before we start bugging them about, okay, it's time for you to declare your major. So again, if you're interested in those details, just look at the top of the declaration of major form. So how did I get off on that topic? Okay. Okay, we already dealt with that one. And there's another beautiful picture. I think that one's from like right in front of the, where is that? I think that's in front of the campus center. Okay. Again, I want to reiterate resources. So in terms of decision making, the primary resources are my office, the Office of Academic Advising. And obviously, the pre-major advisor, the professional advisors, the pre-professional advisors for those specific areas. The Cohen Career Center is a wonderful resource as students start to think in that direction. So internships, looking for jobs in their summers. And so, how to make decisions about what to, they'll offer, like, how do you decide what you want to do? How do you decide what you want to major in? They offer those kind of programs as well. On the support side, a wide variety of wonderful resources. So we have the Writing Resource Center, which is, staffed by professionals, but there are also trained student workers who are, they've been identified as very good writers themselves, and they will set up one-on-one consultations with students who are working on papers for courses and things like that. If you want more kind of general tutoring for a course, like you're not doing well in your math class, you can sign up for the Tribe Tutor Zone, which offers, and we don't offer tutoring in every single class, but a lot of the classes are covered. The Dean of Students office has a set of academic support programs that students really like. And then SWEM Library, they are so wonderful. I love librarians. This group of people, they're just so eager to help. They are looking for ways to help both faculty and students. So if you go to the SWEM website, you will see immediately that there are ways to get immediate help. Or you can, just like the Writing Resource Center, you can set up a one-on-one consultation with a librarian, whether that be online or in person, and they can help you, get going on looking for sources for a project on which you're working. So lots and lots of different kinds of support. So as I said, one of the key things that I try to get across to students is you have so many resources available to you. It's my job to make you aware of them and to get it across to you that they are there for you. Okay, so we have some time, fair amount of time, to take some questions. If you don't get all of your questions answered, you can either reach out to the advising office, or you can send me an email, and I will be very happy to follow up with you. Now, before we get into the questions, I want to say I'm going to try to answer all the questions, but I reserve the right to not know the answer to something. And the mantra I tell to my my advisors, the faculty advisors in the training sessions that I put them through, is it's okay to not know the answer to something, and it's much worse to make up an answer to something. So one thing I work with my advisors on is modeling with their student how to find information and how to answer questions. So we work on that a lot as well. Okay, Megan, what do we have?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of confusion over the graphic about the call curriculum.
Okay.
And where it says 3 elective courses, 1 in each knowledge domain, are those the same thing as your call 200s, or is that different?
Those are different. So the call 200 are going to be designated. So for example, again, not to talk about me, but my social movements course is Sociology 361. And if you were to look in the system, it would say, under its list of attributes, it would say call 200, that it qualifies for the call 200. It will also, so there are other courses that I teach that that aren't call 200s, but do satisfy the CSI domain area. So a student might take that as one of their elective courses. So no, that's a very good question, and that's a common point of confusion. There are these officially designated call 200 courses that have to have the anchoring and the reaching out component. But then we also use the domains in another way. You have to take an NQR course, an ALB course, and a CSI course.
Thank you. What would you recommend for students to stay organized and meet the requirements of classes for each semester? Is there a way to track that through like the student information system, or would you use your own tracking system?
I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways. I'm going to answer it in the way I think it was intended, which is in terms of keeping track of requirements and working your way through the college curriculum. For that, we have a wonderful system called DegreeWorks. And DegreeWorks is, it's basically when a student calls up their DegreeWorks profile, it's basically a long series of checkboxes that is color coded in very detailed ways that lays out, okay, you, in terms of the call 200s, for example, you have completed this many call 200s. You still need to complete this many call 200s. Then once a student declares a major, the major gets, and its requirements gets added to the DegreeWorks as well with a new set of checkboxes that the student will be able to follow. Now, DegreeWorks is part of the college studies. So students will get exposed to it over the summer and see what it looks like, and their advisors will talk to them about it as well. So in terms of how do you keep track of all the requirements throughout your 4 years, just keep track of your DegreeWorks. And it's so wonderful by the end, when students are ready to graduate, my major advisors will come in, my DegreeWorks looks gorgeous. All of the boxes are checked, and that is a very, very good sign. Now, the more general way I want to answer that question in terms of like life, like how do you organize your life and how do you excel as a student at William and Mary? I actually did a little thing a couple of years ago. Is I tracked down 6 of my best students, and I asked them a set of related questions, like how are you successful? What are your habits? So you remember that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This was kind of my own version of that. And then even more enlightening, I asked them, what mistakes do you see other students make that you don't make? And oh my gosh, did they go off on that one. Just to summarize briefly what they said, there's a lot of color coding that goes on among really organized students. They're just so organized. And one of their other mantras was, you should never ever have to pull an all-nighter. We all have these fond or not so fond memories of, oh, I had to pull this all-nighter to get this project done in college. And all of these students were like, no, I don't pull all-nighters because I don't allow that to happen to me. I take control. If I have a project to do, I map it out. They have these elaborate calendars that they use, these elaborate systems. And so, yeah, the students that really excel, I would say half the battle is organization. And so if I have students who are struggling, and I do have advisees who struggle from time to time, that's one of the things I'll talk to them about. So I had a student who, she missed several advising appointments with me. So finally, when I got her in my office, I said, do you have a calendar? And so the answer to that question was a very sad no. And so we talked, before we got into what we were supposed to talk about, I said, look, we're going to talk about organization because that is really half the battle. Megan?
Thank you. I think that's some great advice for considering easily anywhere. Okay, so a few questions about course registration and meeting with your advisor. Do you have to enroll in any classes before meeting with your advisor? When are you able to start choosing your first semester classes? Just how does that work a little bit more?
Yeah, typically what we've been doing over the past few years, and we found that it works pretty well, is we designate certain classes that are available for a registration period that we have happen over the summer. And typically we limit it to, I believe it's 8 credits, I think. So that would be 2 or depending on how many credits each class is, 2 or 3 classes. We really want students during that registration period to register for one of their first year seminars, whether that be, as I said, it doesn't matter the order, whether it be the Call 100 or the Call 150, and then 1 or 2 other classes. And we're very careful about how we set up that summer registration period. Prior to meeting with their advisees, then the advisors, I teach them in the advisor training I offer, how to look at students, what they've already signed up for, kind of red flags to look out for, like, okay, the student signed up for this, but they really should think about changing that or something like that. And then after the advising meeting, the student will receive from the faculty advisor a PIN number. Sorry, that's like saying ATM machine. It's a 6-digit number that the student then uses when they go into their registration window to register for their remaining 1 or 2 more courses. Megan, do you think that addressed what that question was about?
I think so. It was a combination of a bunch of different questions.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. Just a general question, how many credits do freshmen typically sign up for their first semester? Is there a number you wouldn't go over?
Yeah, definitely. So here's my thoughts about that. As I said, the minimum number of credits is 12. To be a full-time student, you have to take at least 12. So you need to sign up for 12, at least. If you sign up for 12 and only 12, that's okay. But essentially, you're kind of locked into those classes for this semester. So let's say you're 3 weeks into the semester and one of those courses, for whatever reason, is just not working out for you. You really don't have the possibility then to drop it unless you petition. You can always petition it's called the Committee on Academic Status. And, we review, students' requests in that regard. But 12 is typically the minimum. The maximum we allow without petitioning is 18. But in a first semester students, yeah, I really want to guard students against 18. That is a lot of credit stake. That's that's the equivalent of 6 courses. And this is particularly something I talk to students about if they are, every year we have students who are coming right out of high school, but we also have transfer students. And sometimes we have transfer students who, they took a full load of courses in community college, and they took 6 courses there, and so like, well, I want to take 6 courses here, and probably not a good idea for a first semester transfer student to do that. So kind of the sweet spot then is 15 to 16 credits. 15 to 16, it's doable. It allows you the possibility then of dropping one of those if one of the courses isn't working out. But typically I find that students are able to do kind of 14 to 16. If that works out really well and the student in their second semester wants to take 17 or 18, that's fine. If they want to go above 18 though, then the petition process kicks in again, and the student has to petition for the possibility of doing that.
I wouldn't advise more than
Yeah, what's your magic number, Megan?
Oh, I think I did 15 all semesters until my senior year when I did 12.
Yeah, if you do the math, so let's say a hypothetical student is coming in with no AP credits, like 0, which we have, and they do fine. That student, if they're going to be here for 8 semesters, in order to leave the college with the required 120 hours, they need to average 15 credits per semester. So that's if you come in with no credits. Lots of students come in with credits. They come in with lots of credits. And so then you're talking about, okay, well, we can slow it down. You can do 12 to 14 credits some of your semesters. If you want to finish a semester early, we'll need to do that math and figure that out. If you get behind, then we'll start talking about, William & Mary offers a lot of courses over the summer. That's another way to catch up on credits. So yeah, there's a lot of options.
Next question is, how easy is it to get into the classes that you need to take? Do you have to have a lot of backup classes in mind? Obviously that's going to change between major and call curriculum. So let's talk general, like first and second year call curriculum classes.
Yeah. No, you do. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I mean, we're not as bad as some of the nightmares you hear about where, students are waiting around taking extra semesters to get into classes because they just can't get into the classes they need. But I do ask my advisees to have backups, to have a lot of options. Obviously, it gets easier every semester you're here. You're registering earlier and earlier in the registration process. There are, so again, not to talk about me too much, but currently we're going through registration. And in the fall, one of the classes I'm teaching is my statistics course, which is required by sociology majors, but a fair number of other programs also have it as not so much a requirement, but as one of the options for another required course. And so during registration, there's a short period where we allow our majors, because we want to take care of our own sociology majors, to get into the course. And then we lift that restriction, and then everybody else can get in. So I'm currently fielding not a whole lot of emails from students, but I think I'm looking at I keep a very organized wait list just in case I need to use it. These students should be able to get in on their own, but currently I have 6 on my wait list. And as registration proceeds, I'll keep checking my course list see if they got in on their own, and if not, I'll reach back out to them and most likely let them in. So that obviously varies professor by professor how that happens. But yeah, there's going to be some courses that students may not get into right away. Now, we do make sure in the first year that we're offering plenty of spots in Call 100s and Call 150s. So those will get completed in the first year. So yeah, that's well, I'm going to answer that one, I think.
That's helpful.
Try.
The next question is about classes that fulfill call requirements. So, is there a way you can find out what classes can fulfill those? And are there any limits on how many classes that fulfill those requirements you can take a year?
I'm going to start with the second one. The answer is no. You don't want to take your call 400 is kind of designed to be your as you're finishing up your major in your major kind of capstone. So that one obviously you can't take right away, but the others are kind of set up with a lot of flexibility with regard to when you take them. Typically students will take their call 100 and 150 in their first year. They may take a call 200 in their freshman year as well. They may, wait to take the one they really want to take, a little bit later on. Oh, I didn't get into it my freshman year, but I want to wait and take it. That's fine. Call 300, 350, typically you're looking at, sophomore, junior year. We keep a very close eye on students if they haven't taken requirements by their senior year, and we will reach out to them. We'll even set up special registration windows to make sure that they get into those courses. The first part of the question, how do you find out about courses? Okay. The key technology that I use for that is if you put it in the William and Mary search, just put in open course list. And that will bring you to a site where you can say, okay, I want to look for a call 200 that's being offered this semester in the physics department. So it allows you to kind of designate a variety of parameters, and then it will bring up only those courses that satisfy all the parameters you put in. So, excuse me, that is, for me, that's the best technology that we offer to look at that. Open course list.
Do students ever retake courses that they may have gotten AP or dual enrollment credit for?
I'm going to try to answer this one. I don't know if I know every single detail about this, but so what I would ask you to do is, so I'm going to try to answer it, but then I'm also going to send you to a place which would have all the details. In the search from the William & Mary front page, you'd want to put in, well, to get you there would be revoking credit. That should take you to where you need to be to look for these kind of details. So let's say a student comes in, they've gotten AP credit, say for for calculus, for example, but they think it was a fluke. They really want to retake it. There's as I commonly say, there's a form for that. There is a form that they can fill out that would revoke that credit, and then they're free to take that course again. They cannot have the AP credit and then keep that on their record and then simultaneously take that same course that they got the AP credit for again. But yeah, if you want to look at all those details, put in revoking credit and it will kind of lay out what that procedure looks like.
Awesome. Okay, our next question is, can certain courses meet two requirements at once? So maybe it's a major specific course that is also a call curriculum course, or can call curriculum courses just meet general education?
Yeah, we have a set of rules about that too. And so again, I'm not going to go through all the nitty gritty details here. A single course, but here's kind of the key things to say about this question. A single course can satisfy only one of the calls. So you may go to the open course list and put in, and you'll come up with a list of courses that, and there are a few courses that do this. They'll satisfy a call 200, but they may also satisfy a call 300. There aren't a lot of those, but they do exist. And students can take that course and count it towards one of their calls, but it can't count towards both of those. Now, with regard to a major, the rule is in a student's career, they can have 3 courses that simultaneously count towards the call curriculum and towards their major. So we have a 3 course overlap limit there. I think that's as much detail as I want to get into now. If you call up the call curriculum in the website, I'm sorry, I sound like a broker. I'm not trying to be the person. Oh, just go to the website, go to the website, go to the website. But I'm trying to, satisfy a level of detail here that is palatable.
All right, next question is about changing your mind. Let's say you declared a minor. Don't want to do that anymore. Would it look poorly upon you? Also, we'll rope that in with what happens if you want to change your major?
That happens all the time. No, that is totally fine. And will it look bad? No, it won't look bad. It shows that you're taking ownership of things. And the worst thing we want to see is students who stick with a major that it's just not working out for them. And not to be a real downer here, but the nightmare scenario is a student who sticks with a major. You need to have overall in your total GPA at the college 2.0. Within the major, though, you also have to keep at least a 2.0. And so the really sad situations are when students try to stick with a major, their overall GPA is fine, but they're within the major GPA is below a 2.0. And after a while, if they've taken enough classes, they're not doing well in them. And these are extreme scenarios here. So don't let this freak you out. But math starts to work against you. It becomes really hard to get that GPA up to 2.0. So in that case, we really reach out to students and say, in my office, we'll run reports on this, and then we'll reach out to students like, look, this just isn't working out. We need to rethink what you major in. Another thing with regard to just the phrase Megan used, like, will it look bad? Another thing I try to get through to students is that it doesn't look bad on a transcript to have an occasional withdrawal. Like, say a course, you get halfway through a course, you're way past the drop deadline, but you're still within your capacity to withdraw from it. You withdraw from it, it does show up as a W on your transcript. But if you have 1 or 2 W's throughout your time at William and Mary, that's totally fine. It's not. Some students kind of consider it the scarlet letter, and it's not at all. It's totally.
Good advice. So I know that we have a couple more questions in the Q&A, but I don't think we're going to get to those today. So if you do still have questions, feel free to reach out either to your regional dean or to Professor Lindeman here.
Let me put up my.
Yes. I do have one last question for you before we wrap things up.
Okay.
What do you wish students asked you earlier on? What is your one word of advice for students?
I really work with my students on, well, obviously, organization is very important, but how to be like whole people and how to have a life. How to lower the stress level. I'll ask them how are you getting enough sleep? I think they vastly underestimate sleep. So even though I do talk to my advisees about kind of the nuts and bolts and classes, the stuff we're supposed to talk about, I also really emphasize kind of the whole person thing, and I'll talk to them about um, my my life, my hobbies, having a real life, and so that's kind of the note I want to end on is yeah, you're here to study, but we want you to be whole people and be good people, and so I emphasize that as well. Get some sleep.
Always important. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining today. We look forward to hearing more from you in the future. If you are ready to make that deposit, remember you can always make your deposit under the Welcome website under Activate and Deposit. We also have plenty more sessions over the next 2 days, including some awesome department chats if you are interested in talking to some professors in whatever subject area you're interested in. If you missed any sessions and you want to go back and hear a little bit more, there are recordings posted on our Welcome website. So I hope that everybody has a fantastic evening. And again, welcome to William & Mary.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye.